Hello everyone. So we will continue our Lightning Web Component series, and here I am sharing my screen. Today we will start with the API decorator first, and then we will go and check the lifecycle hooks in Lightning Web Component. Okay, so track decorator, we got the use case why we still use the track decorator, and that is also a very important interview question. Why do we still use the track decorator? Okay, and you may get this question. Now we have another question: what is the API decorator and why do we use it? Okay, so API decorator is a decorator whenever we pass a value from a parent component to a child component. The property which is on the child component has to be annotated with the API decorator in order for parent to be able to pass the value to it. Okay, so there is a parent component, there is a child component. Parent is passing a value to child component. Now, if the child component will have an API decorator imported, and if that API decorator is decorated on the property, then only it will be possible. Okay, so let us try to see it with the help of example. And then today I'm in my personal laptop, so I can open the extension. This is the Lightning Studio extension. I hope you're able to see the screen of Lightning Studio.
Yes, Mohit.
Perfect. So this is Lightning Studio. We use it to create the Lightning web component, and I highly encourage you to use VS Code, not this, because this is not a standard Salesforce thing. This was built by somebody, so there is no support or as such thing. Try to use VS Code. I'm using it just to save some time. Let me name it parent component. Okay. Okay. And here I will mark is exposed as true. I don't want to include CSS. I don't want to include SVG file. I just want this to be added on the record page. But these are the things where you can add your Lightning web component. Okay. So this can also be an interview question where actually you can add your Lightning web component. What can be included in the meta XML file? These are the things. We have seen record page, app page, home page, but these are the other things as well where you can add your Lightning web component page. I highly recommend you to go through the whole list and try to see if they are able to add LWC component maybe on a pre-chat or maybe on a flow screen or maybe on a utility bar and see if it is working or not. Okay, so this is our parent component. Let's create it. Okay, now this is the template here. I'll not do much. I'll just write this is the parent component. Okay, simple, nothing fancy. Now let's go to the JavaScript file of it and try to create a variable. Let's call it value to pass. Okay, and I'm going to give it my name, or let's call it name to pass. Okay, just for the simplicity, name to pass, and I will give it my name and I'm going to save it. Okay, that's very simple. I will create another Lego component which will be a child component. And I'm going to save it. Now here in the template of child component, I will write, this is my child component. Okay, simple. Now we will go to the JavaScript file of child component, and here we will create a property. We will call it name passed by parent, and we will not give any value to it. The value of this will be coming from our parent component. Okay, So these are the two things we did. Now we first need to see how we are going to include our child component in the parent component. Okay, so how do we do that? In the HTML file of parent component, we will have to include the tag of child component. Okay, and it goes like this: C dash name of your child component. And always remember, every time a capital letter will come, it will treat it as a different word. So you will have to put a dash in between to tell that, okay, child was a word and then there was a capital word after this, which is component. It goes in all capital letter. Okay. So this is how you are going to add it. Okay. Now let's do it like this. And we'll save it. This is how you are going to add your child component in your parent component. Okay, but you have just added it right now. What I'm going to do now is I will be adding this parent component on the UI, and because child component is already inside it, we need not to add it separately. Okay, so but currently we are not passing any value. We have just added it on the child component, that's on the parent component. Now let's go to the Salesforce, go to the account page. And let us try to add this parent component on the page. Okay. Let us remove the other lighting web components which we have created. Here, let us search for parent, and you'll be able to see parent component here because we have selected that in meta XML file. Okay. Now let us just save this. Okay, so we were able to add the parent component, and child components HTML by default got included because we have included the child component in the parent component. Okay, so the first part, which is about how do we pass the how do we add the child component in the parent component is clear. Okay, it should be clear to you guys, right? So, anybody has any doubt on how do we add the child component on the parent component? No, right?
No.
Now, the property, there is a property name to pass. Let me add this in the HTML file of it, and let's call it name passed by parent compo. See, if we needed to use this property in the parent component, we would have just used it like simple, put it inside the curly braces and use it. But now we have to pass this property to the child component, and then we will have to use it here in the HTML of child component. So the first step is whatever the name we have, we'll copy or not copy, just go to the parent component, and here we will have to pass the value to child component. Okay, so how do we pass the value? Remember the name of it, same way the way we have added the child component, same way we are going to add the property name as well. So name is name passed by parent. Every capital alphabet will be treated as a new word. Okay, so here we have, let us also use by name passed by parent. So name dash passed dash by dash parent. That's how you are going to write it in the HTML. Okay. Let us do that and then we will see. Name dash passed dash by dash parent equals to. Here you can simply add the value of it. What is the value of what is the value we are trying to pass? That is name to pass. That I can write simply inside the curly braces. Just a second. So, all right. Now this is done. We have now here we'll have to just add the value of our property which we have in the child component, because now that it will get the value from parent, we will display its original name. Okay, so let's recap what we did. Okay, we created a parent component and inside that we have added the child component. Child component has a property name passed by parent, and we are passing name to pass property value to this particular component. Okay, now in the child component, whatever property with name passed by parent will get the value of name to pass by parent component, and then we will display it in the UI. That's it. Very simple. Now, name passed by parent is getting passed by our parent component. That is the only trick. But we are not using the API decorator now. Okay. So first we will have to use the import the API decorator. And then we will have to use the API decorator here. And then save it. Okay. And now let us, I think this has already been deployed. We need not to do anything separately. Let us go to UI and do the debug part of it if it is required. Okay. So let's go to UI. Let's refresh this. Save this. See, now if you see name passed by parent component, you are getting the name which was passed by your parent component, and we are displaying the value in the child component. Okay. That is only possible because we are using the API decorator. If we will not use the API decorator, let's say if I remove the API decorator and save this, go to this, refresh this, maybe edit this once. Save this and come back to the page again. Now you will not get the value. Okay. So API decorator holds the key. When we pass the value from parent to child, API decorator is the decorator which tells the component that, okay, this is an API decorator. That means it can get the value from the parent component. Otherwise, it will not, allow that thing. So we will have to use the API decorator whenever we want to pass the value from parent to child. Anybody has any doubt in this?
No more.
Yes, we want to pass more than one parameter. We have to pass the same way.
Yeah, same way. If there are more than one parameter, we'll pass with the same way. Just add the name of it, the way we are adding proper naming convention. So the only thing you need to remember here is that this how we are using the name of it. Okay, so here in the child component, the name is named passed by parent, and how we are breaking it into the HTML structure is very important. Okay, so that is very important, and rest almost everything remains same. If there are two, you will pass it to two. So if I create another property and call it last name, okay, and if let's say in the JS we have last name is equals to RT, and in the HTML we will pass last dash name equals to last name, because here now we have last name is same in both the component. So let us also save this. We will have to annotate both of them with the API. Save it. Let's add the value in the HTML. Now save this. Everything is added. Let's go to the HTML. Refresh this. Save this. Come back to the page. I think it did not save yet. Yeah. Now you can see last name was also passed by parent component, and we are getting the value of it. Okay.
Yeah. So like the preferred way can be, instead of passing multiple parameters, if we have an object, that also we can pass
Yep.
that.
Yep. 100% you can pass the object. 100% you can do that. It was just to show you in the simplified manner how do we use the API decorator, the importance of API decorator. Without using API decorator, this communication will fail. We will not be able to pass the value. So when somebody in an interview asks why we still use the API decorator or what is the need of API decorator, you'll be telling without the API decorator, when we communicate from parent to child, we will not be able to pass the value. So API decorator holds the key which informs that this particular, see, whatever property you annotate API with, this particular property can get a value from parent component as well. Okay, it's not like if you have annotated any particular property with API, then you cannot assign a value to it. You can very well assign a value to it. Like here, you can assign a value to it like this. Like if I want to add it as a Prashad, I can do that, but this will also take the value. This can also take the value from parent component. If it takes, then it will, that value will be used. Okay. So this is the API decorator for you. We have covered track decorator. We have covered API decorator. Now let us see the wire decorator, which I think we have already done. We'll just use the same example to revise the things we did. Okay. Let's close this. And it was account list. This is the first lining web component we created in our org. Let us open. And it also has an Apex class account sharing controller. Let us see if we have that. Yes, we have that class. So the third decorator is wire decorator. Okay, wire decorator is used whenever we want to call an Apex method and want to get the data from Apex and display it on the UI. That is when we will be using the wire decorator. Okay, and uses is very simple. First, we will create an Apex class. Okay, that Apex class will be Aura enabled. Okay, and if we are just reading the data, if we just need to get the data, then cacheable equals to true when we are using the wire decorator. That is also a very important question, but I will come back to you later on that question. Why cacheable is true? What will happen if it is not? I'll come back to that question later. Once we set up the fundamentals for everybody, we will come back to that later. So first step is to understand wire in the basic format. Okay. What we did, we imported the wire, okay, along with the lightning element, and then we'll have to import the method as well. How do we import the method? We have written this Apex class. Class name is account sharing controller. Method name is get my accounts. Okay, this is my method name, and this has been annotated with Aura enabled. If you will not use Aura enabled, then that method will not be available for your Lightning Web component. Okay, so we'll have to use the Aura enabled as well. Okay. And how do we import it? Import method name from in colon Salesforce @Salesforce /Apex /class name dot method name. That's how this is the path of your method get my accounts. Okay, and that's how you are going to import it. Now, once you import it here, what you will do, you have created a property accounts. This is a list which will hold the account list you will be getting via get my accounts method. Okay, and then what you will do, you will annotate @wire, and within bracket you will write get my accounts. Okay, this is the same method which you have imported, and in return it will give you wired accounts. Okay, wired account basically nothing but the account list which will get an object in return. Okay, this is an error, this can get an error and data. Okay, if it gets the data, then we will assign that data to the accounts property we created here. Otherwise, we will just log the console that we have got some error. Okay, so this is the structure of it. Okay, here we have used a method to get it, but we can also get it directly in a property, and then we get that property as an object. Okay, so if we use the function to get it, then we'll have to do assignment like this. If we get it as a property, then we will directly annotate it to a property, and we will do that as well. Don't worry about that. But for now, what I want you to understand is that with the help of this wire decorator, you are calling this Apex method, getting the result in a method. Wired account is a method which will be getting an object, and then assigning the value of the data returned by get my accounts to the accounts. Okay, so accounts will now hold the list of account you will be getting via get my accounts method. Okay, and then the job will be to display the data. Because this is a list, then it will come another question, how to display the list data in the HTML. Okay, so for that case, we will use the if true and then looping through it. Okay, so what we did here, we checked if accounts has some data. We are using template if true and if false. This is nothing but the conditional rendering. Okay, we are doing the conditional rendering, and we are checking if accounts has some data, then do this. Otherwise, we can just display an error message saying no accounts found. Okay, so we are checking here if list has some data, then do this, display this, otherwise just display no accounts found. Okay, and if accounts has data, then we are looping through each account. So how do we loop through a list in HTML? By using the for each. For each of the accounts in the accounts list, we will have to, this is just like creating a loop, okay, where we create a variable, account A is equals to list of accounts. So this is nothing but the instance variable of account. We created an account, and then this will hold the, this is nothing but an iterator. Okay, and then we will display account.id or account.name, whatever we want to display. So that is how we are going to display the list of accounts in it. Now, this HTML has two, three concepts. One, it is checking, it is also checking the conditional rendering. It is doing the conditional rendering. If it is true, then do this, otherwise do that. This is nothing but known as the conditional rendering. If something is true, then do this, otherwise do that. That is conditional rendering. Okay, and then we are displaying the list of account by looping through the list of account and then iterating over each account. So there are two concepts we are doing here in this particular HTML. Let me know if you have any doubt in this, or you feel that we should write another separate example for this. This is fairly easy, but for new people, this might be a bit tricky, which is okay. You do it once on your own, you will be able to understand few things. You will have a couple of doubts on few things, and we can clear those out. But if you want, I can create a separate example as well, copying this or maybe using another object and can display. Okay. But for now, don't worry. I just wanted to show you what is the use of wire decorator. That's it. Nothing else. We will be covering almost everything again when we do the communication part. How do we communicate from LWC to Apex? Okay, so don't worry.
Just one question, maybe here, line number 5 and 6, right? Is the @wire get account? It's kind of return type of the wire account function.
Yes, it returns a promise, which is nothing but a kind of object which contains the error and data, both properties. And if error is there, then data will be undefined. If the data is there, then error will be undefined. Then it will be on us to which property do. What we can also do is, instead of catching it or instead of assigning it to a property, we can assign it to a particular to a method. Instead of assigning it to a method, we can assign it to a property, and then inside the HTML, let's say we name it as a property one. In the HTML, we can go and find it out by property one dot data. So property one dot data then will contain the list of account. Okay, so it depends on us. There are two ways to do it, and I will show you practically both the ways. But what it returns, what wire method returns is a promise, okay, which can contain either error or data. Okay, and we will be talking about promises more when we cover the few JavaScript concepts as well. Once we set the base of lifecycle hooks and these decorators, then we will move to the communication part. Okay, how do we communicate from Lightning Web Component to Salesforce without Apex, and then with Apex, then we will be covering more about the promises. Now, let us move to the life cycle hooks. Okay, there'll be some theory, and then we will try to do it practically. Yes, Manjunath, go ahead.
Right. What if I have a 3 to 5 hour wires fault?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we go with the sequence? I mean, which wire will call first? Which wire? Assume that I wanted data from the first wire first. Okay, and the
Hmm.
data obtained from that I have to use it in some other one in other wire which I used.
Yeah, then we will have to use the life cycle hook in such a way, like, let's say we put it in the connected callback, or let's say uh, we use the constructor or connected callback to do it in a way that we get the data first, then we kind of do data from the second with the help of a property received in the first. Because if we'll just write it plain blank, I don't think there'll be any order sequence. Okay, I
No,
think
but all wire will execute at once or they execute in sequence. That is what. Yes.
I don't think they execute in sequence. They will execute at once. I don't think they retain the order in which they are written, but we can check it. I'll note it down.
Okay.
Mohit, I need to ask one quick question actually.
Go ahead.
Mohit, if we need to be deploy this component through sandbox to production, so directly we can do, or like we have to be follow some procedure or something?
Procedure as in,
Procedure like we have to be create test classes or something.
see, for your Apex class, you will have to declare the test class. But for a Lightning Web Component, it is not required right now.
Okay, Mohit.
Yeah. For this, you'll have to write the test class.
Okay, for the class we have to be write test us definitely, right?
But 100%, you will have to
Yep.
write a class for it. Okay.
Yep.
And all right. All right. What is the life cycle hook? Anybody wants to take that? I'm
Yeah.
going to this one now. Yeah, go ahead.
Life cycle hook is nothing but the, I can say it's like stages of the LWC component where once it loads, which method it calls, once it renders, which method it call after rendering. So like these are the different stages of the LWC component.
Right. So what happens whenever we add a particular Lightning Web Component in a page or something, that particular Lightning Web Component has a life cycle. Like there are different phases in the life cycle of a particular Lightning Web Component. Like the Lightning Web Component will be attached to this web page. Lightning component will be displaying data once it is attached to this particular web page. Okay. Lightning web component will be removed from this particular web page. Lightning web component will be throwing error whenever we add it to the this particular web page, if there is any error. So there are different phases in the life cycle of a particular Lightning web component. Life cycle hook is nothing but a callback method which will get triggered at that particular specific phase of a component life cycle. Okay, so let's say if I have added this Lightning Web component in this particular web page. Now this Lightning Web component is just a part of this web page. There are other things as well. Everything will get loaded. Okay. And if let's say there is any error in it, then error callback will be called. Okay, so this Lightning lifecycle hook is nothing but a callback method, which will call a particular method when certain lifecycle event will happen. Okay, we will explain it more. But for understand, there are two phases. One is mounting phase and second one is unmounting phase. And there is third one, which is called the error phase. In the mounting phase, your Lightning Web component will be mounted on the web page. Like it will be loaded on your web page, and then multiple things happen in between. In the mounting phase, your web page will be loaded on your Lightning Web component will be loaded on particular DOM or particular HTML DOM tree. Okay. And then unmounting phase is the phase where your Lightning Web component will be removed from the DOM of a, or you can say the HTML tree of your web page. An error phase will be called whenever there is an error whenever an error happens in your page, Once your page starts rendering and everything, then error phase will be called and it will display the error message. You always get this rectangular box whenever there is something wrong with the LWC. Nothing but the error callback is getting called, and that will display the error message on the screen. So there are three phases: mounting phase, unmounting phase, and the third one is the error phase. Now inside the mounting phase, the first thing which will get called is the constructor. Okay, so constructor will be called first, then connected callback will be called first. Okay, let me maybe pull the pen and sheet for you because this is important. Let me open the whiteboard if you can. And I have added these things on my notes. You can refer my notes if you want to. Okay, let me write it down here. Okay. And then we will do it practically. You will be able to understand. Okay. So don't worry about anything. So we said there are three phases. One is mounting phase. Then there is unmounting phase. And then the third one is error phase. Okay. I want you to explain in the same manner because most of the people directly go and start explaining the constructor and all. I don't want you to do that. Inside the mounting phase, the first thing which will be called is the constructors. Then there is a callback, connected callback. Then there is rendered callback. Okay. Whenever you load a page and you have added your Lightning Web Component on it, the constructor of that Lightning Web Component will be called first. Okay. And then connected callback will be called, and then rendered callback will be called. Okay, just understand for now, and I will explain in detail when to use, why to use. Okay. This happens in the mounting phase. Okay. In the unmounting phase, disconnected callback. This method gets called, this callback method gets called in the unmounting phase. And in the error phase, we have error callback. So in total, these are the different, you can say phases: constructor, connected callback, rendered callback, disconnect callback, and error callback. Okay. And in between the rendered callback, connected callback, and rendered callback, there is something called the render method, which is not a lifecycle hook, but a kind of protected method. Render. Okay, and we will see what it is. Okay. So if you get this interview question, how will you tell it? What is the lifecycle hook in Lightning Web Component? Lifecycle hook in Lightning Web Component is a callback method which will be triggered at a specific phase of a component's life cycle. Okay, it's a callback method. Remember, it's a callback method. These all are methods in Lightning Web Component. Okay, we will do it practically as well, so don't worry. Now, how it happens in the actual Lightning Web Component? This was the theory part. What happens? The components life cycle will start. Okay, and then you can say constructor will be called. Now If there is a public property to update, that will be updated. Okay. Otherwise, if there is no public property to update, then it will call the connected callback. Okay. At this phase, component is inserted into the DOM. Once the component is inserted into the DOM, then connected callback will be called. Now component is rendered. Once the component is rendered, see, these are callback methods. So they will occur whenever something will happen or something will finish executing. So connected callback will be called whenever component is inserted in the DOM. So now the component is connected with the DOM of that particular web page. So once these things finish executing, then these callback will happen, because these are callback methods. They happen when something done executing. Okay. So constructor will be called first, and then component will be inserted in the DOM. Once that component insertion part is done in the DOM, then connected callback will be called. Okay. Once connected callback will be called, then component will be rendered in the page. The actual page will be displayed. So before the actual value is getting displayed on the page, it will be inserted in the DOM, and then values will be displayed. Whole page will load, values will get loaded, and everything happen. Component, when connected callback will be called, after that component is rendered on the page. Once the component is rendered properly, then it will see if there is any child component. Okay, if child is there, then it will go to child component, and again constructor of child will be called. Child will be inserted in DOM. Connected callback on child will be called. Child will be rendered. And then once the child is rendered, then it will come to the parent component again, and rendered callback on parent will be called. Okay. And that's where the life hook will, life cycle will end. Okay, this is the life cycle when a component is inserted in particular lighting in particular web page. Okay, so in a way it is just doing what happens in the mounting phase, and that's how most of the people will explain it. Like constructor will be called, then connected callback will be called, and then rendered callback will be called. Okay, if there is any disconnect, or if we later on disconnect the page, disconnect the Lightning Web Component from that web page, then a disconnect callback will also be called there. Now, this is all theory. It is really difficult to understand it with the help of theory. So what we are going to do, we will go to Lightning Web Component and create a Lightning Web Component first. Okay, so let's go to Lightning Studio and create a example for this, and do this practically to see how it works. Okay. Let's name it Life Cycle Hooks. This will be exposed. I don't want to include any CSS. I want to add it in the record page and deploy this. Simply just write down the this is the example of lifecycle hooks. Will not do much on the HTML side because this is supposed to just work. We are supposed to work only on the console part of it. Okay. As I told you, first thing is the constructor. Okay. Yes, child rendered callback will also be called, guys. We will see that. That's what we will be doing in the practical. So first will be constructor. Okay. Constructor. Now, constructor is nothing but whenever the instance of that particular lightning web component gets created, constructor will be the first thing which will be called by default. You want to write something on it, you will write. If you do not want to, you can leave it as it is. You need not to specifically write the code in these life cycle loop. These are the part of the life cycle, will happen automatically in the backend. But when you want to add some logic on the specific event during the life cycle of a particular web component, then you can add them. Always remember, when you use constructor, super will be the method which will be called first. Okay, so you will have to write super first without failing, and whatever you write after that will then be logical for it. Otherwise, it will give us the error. And in case of error, the error callback runs. Then mounting phase and mounting phase does not happen. Then the error phase directly kicks in. Okay. So let us write a console statement. Console.log constructor is called, and we'll save it. Now we are saying after the constructor, what happens in the mounting phase? Connected callback gets called, right? So let us write some logic for the connected callback. Okay. And here we can again write a console.log. Callback is called. And we are going to save this. Now let us add this before the constructor. I just want to show you, even if we add the connected callback prior to constructor, then also constructor will be the first statement which will get executed. Okay. Why super is required? That is also a very important interview question. We will cover that after this. Just a second. Let us add this particular web component in the page. Let's remove this. Lifecycle hooks. Let's add it. Save it. Go back here. Open the inspector. We have written the console log. So let's refresh this. Now, if you see here, first constructor is called, then connected callback is called. So constructor will be the first method which will be called, and then connected callback will be called. Okay, even if we write connected callback prior to constructor in the HTML in the JavaScript file, that will not change anything in the backend, and in the backend constructor will be called first, then the connected callback. Now let us also write the rendered callback. First question which should come in your mind should be why we actually need it. Okay, like what is the need of it? Like when we can write our code normally with the functions and methods. See, whenever we want to do a specific thing on let's say when the page loads, or when we want to do this specific thing when page finish rendering on the page, or when we want to do certain things whenever page instance, or you can say the lighting web components instance is created. So whenever we want to do something on the certain specific event of the life cycle of that particular lighting web component, then we need to write that particular piece of code inside these callback methods. So when the page will finish rendering, then let's say if you want to send a message to somebody, want a notification or something, then we can do that in the rendered callback, because rendered callback will be the best place to tell, okay, now the page has finished rendering. Now we can send our message. If we do it generic way, then it might be possible that your page has not finished rendering, yet you send a notification that it has finished. Okay, so when we use these life cycle hooks, at the time we'll have to do specific thing on certain events, then only we use this life cycle hook. Any real time example to use this in life cycle hook, you will see ample amount of example. They'll be so, see, you will get a lot of requirement every time your page loads. You get these value from Apex, or you get those things from this. There'll be a lot of examples, don't worry. These like lifecycle looks are so common thing in lighting web component. We'll be doing it a lot. Okay, don't worry. First, let us set the base of it, and then we will do the example as well. Let us save this and see the when the rendered callback gets executed. Okay. Now, if you see the console log, constructor is called, connected callback is called, and rendered callback is called. Okay, so they will happen in an order. Okay, rendered callback will not be called before connected callback, even if you write it in the JavaScript file in such a way. Okay, now this was just the parent component. Let us create a child component and append it inside the parent component, and then see what happens. Because what we discussed till now is that constructor will be called, and then component will be inserted into whom connected callback will called. And then if there is any child component, then it will go and do the constructor connected callback for child. Okay, so let us see if that thing is working or not. Okay. So let's create a new lightning web component. lifecycle hooks and give it a name child. Deploy this. Just write a p tag. This is child component name. And copy this code, put it in the connected callback on child is called constructor on child is called and rendered callback. Child is called. Okay. Now let us go to the UI and try to add this. Try to see what is happening. Let us first edit the page. Let's go to the inspector. It's not, this has not been added. Okay, we did not add the child on the parent, right? So why will it work? First, we'll have to add this child component in the parent component, right? So C dash live cycle hooks. Okay. Now, when we add the child component in the parent, then again we'll have to see if you're getting the updated value or not. Let's just edit it once. Save it. That component is now visible. Let's open the inspector. Delete the log. Refresh the page. So see, when we refresh the page reloads. Okay, the HTML's like whole page DOM structure will be recreated, and then this your lightning web component will also be re-added, reattached to the DOM of the page again. Okay, so then these lifecycle loop will be called again. Now, if you see here, constructor on parent is called, sorry, constructor on parent is called, then connected callback on parent is called. Then you see rendered callback on parent is not called because there was a child component. It went to the child component and constructor on child is called first. Then connected callback on child is called first. Then rendered callback on child is called first, and then rendered callback on parent will be called. Okay, so you understand the structure of it. Constructor will be called, connected callback will be called, and if there is a child component, then it will go to child component, will call the constructor, connected callback, rendered callback, and then finally the rendered callback on parent will be called at the last. Is it clear, guys, with this example? So when you get this question in the interview, you will have to tell it in the best possible manner. There are three phases. we can do hard refresh with right click on refresh arrow. Sorry, what you're saying? This?
On the refresh arrow.
Where we refresh on the top.
Yeah, okay.
Or you can just paste type command plus F5 or command shift R. That will also do the same.
Okay, so when you get this question in the interview, you will tell properly there are three phases: mounting phase, unmounting phase, and error phase. Okay, there are few callback methods in the mounting phase. There are one callback method in the unmounting phase, and there are one callback method in the error phase. I don't want you to directly start that constructor will be called, connected callback will be called, because everybody does that, but that is not the right way to say that. Okay, tell it in the phase manner. Okay, now,
Yes, sir. I have a doubt.
yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So if I want to fetch some data from the database, so I will be writing that method of fetching the data in the constructor. And after that, until then, I want to show the loader on screen. And to hide that loader on screen and show the data, that code I will be writing in the render method or connected callback method. Where will be writing that code?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Uh, I want to fetch data from the database.
Hmm.
So I will be writing that code of fetching the data in the constructor method, constructor callback.
Mhm.
And until then, I want to show the loader on screen.
Mhm.
So after the data is fetched, I want to hide that loader and show the data. So where I will be writing that code of hiding the loader and showing the data.
Rendered callback. When the rendering will be done, or you can also write it inside the connected callback as well. Once you get the data, you can hide it. But see, rendering means that displaying part. The display will start working once the rendering part is done. Everything will be displayed on your page. Okay, so you can write it inside the connected callback as well and tell that, okay, if the account list has got the data, then hide this banner and display the account list. Okay, so then rendering of account will start.
What if the connected callback is called first before getting the data? So will it call again?
Connected callback will be called first before getting the data means?
What if the connected callback is called first before fetching the data from the database?
How
And
to
it doesn't
database?
and it doesn't gets the data. So it will be definitely run the else part if data is not available.
Huh. Huh.
So
Will do.
will
So
it run again if fetching the data from the database?
that is why we use these life cycle methods where you can actually check if account list has got data, then display this, otherwise display this banner. You're saying if the once the data will come, will it reload?
Sorry, sir, someone came. Sorry, can you repeat?
No, I'm asking you. So are you asking that once you, let's say you have written it like this, if account list has data, then display the data, otherwise display the loading button.
Loader.
Okay.
Right.
Now you are saying that because when the page will load, data will not be there, it will be doing the loading part only. It will be showing the,
Yes.
once you get the data, will it refresh the page? So
It should not refresh the page,
right.
I think. So how will we implement this completely? Just to
I
continue.
think in the connected callback only, you will be using something like if data is there, then do this, otherwise do this. And once the data comes in, it will re-render your data. And before that, it will keep on rendering the spanner. But we can implement this. If you want, we can implement this in the session.
Yes, please. It will clarify the connected callbacks.
Let's
Calling methods.
implement this so that it will be good for everybody. Okay, but guys,
Yes.
you tell me the basic concept of lifecycle hook is clear to you all or not? Like, what are the things we have? If you get this question in an interview, will you able to explain it or not? Practical things we will be doing, like we have just started this. Don't worry about it. We'll do ample amount of examples. Okay.
Just one, the disconnected callback, like what is
Disconnected callback and error callback are also two different callbacks which happens in the page. Disconnect callback happens when we disconnect a particular Lightning Web component from the page. Okay. And error is simple. Whenever an error will happen, you will get the error callback. Okay. So in order to practically do the disconnect callback, we will have to do the conditional rendering. Okay, let us first see the error callback. Okay. We will have
With
to,
one question.
yeah, go ahead, Manjan.
All the callbacks is not mandatory, right? I mean, like,
None of the callbacks are mandatory.
yeah. And one more thing, we use regularly the get method to get of the some of the values of the whatever we got it from the wire or connected callback. How is that sequence will works?
See, getter and setter is again a better way to set the value or get the value in a particular property instead of assigning it in the constructor. Use the getter and setter because it is better way to do, and it will be easier for you to use them in the HTML as well. So it is on you. Let's say there is a property, you want to define a value to that property. You can define it directly by property name is equals to value, right? That is one way to do it. You can define the value to that property inside the constructor, and you can create a getter method and then define the value of that property in the getter method. So it comes to your personal choice which one you want to use. Let's say you have to do some conditioning here. If this is this, then do this, or if this is this, then assign this value to this. Then you cannot directly assign it, like you assign a property value, name is equals to Mohit. That you did because there was no conditioning. But if there is a conditioning, you'll have to check if certain thing is true, then assign this name. If certain things are not true, then assign this name. Then if you have to do conditioning, then you cannot directly assign property value. Then you will have to either do the constructor or you have to do the getter method. So in the getter setters, you can also do the same things. You'll have to use them together and they also work the same manner. Set the value or you get the value of a particular property. We will cover the getter and setter as well, but the logic use case is simple: to get the value or to set the value. Okay. Getter and setters. We will have to
Okay.
do that as well. And construct these callbacks are not a mandatory things. Again, I'm telling you. Okay. But
But
always,
we should use it, right?
yeah,
To
they will
define the flow.
there will be conditions on which you will have to use them. Okay, see, up till now we have created the Lightning Web components which are very basic, like they were not doing anything. They were just for the concept clearing part. Like we were just using these track decorator, we were just using the wire decorator to explain you the basics. But when we actually write a real Lightning Web components, that will have huge UI functionality. For that, we will be needing or we will be dependent on a lot of life cycle. Okay. Oh,
Yes, right.
yes, so just more, if any logic, right, then we have to write in the one of these functions, right? In the
sorry, can you repeat, Prashant?
like what I'm asking, if you want to write anything into the LWC, that has to be a part of one of these the callback function, right? Otherwise, how it will get executed?
No, not necessarily. So you're saying that every lighting component should have these. See, these lifecycle hooks will be there in the backend. If you want to use them, if you have certain conditions where you can use them, you can use it. Otherwise, they will be there in the backend, but you will not be writing code all the times on it. Like there is our first web component, we created account list. This is fetching value from account and displaying the value in your actual page. And you can see that this is displaying all the accounts. Yet we are not using any callback function here. We're not using any callback function here, right?
One question I had, like in this example,
Mhm.
when is like I had a question like that asked like when does wire actually get to know like it has to be executed?
That is a good question. You tell, when does wire gets loaded? What did you answer that time,
I
Mika?
was not able to give a proper answer, but now I think during the render callback function or
Yeah.
um,
Wire gets the value after the connected callback and before the rendered callback. Okay. And we will see this practically in an example. Okay. But this is also a very important interview question. They ask this a lot in interviews. Okay.
mhm. So it is a before rendered callback, right?
Yes, before rendered callback.
Okay.
Rendered callback will happen when your page is rendered. Like when will your page will be rendered? When it gets all the value it requires to render it, right?
Yeah.
And I have written this thing on my notes as well, when to use, when not to use a particular callback. So you can also go through that, but we will do ample amount of examples, so don't worry. This is just a basic, you can say, the session on the life cycle loop. This is not practical at all. There will be a lot of practical examples we will be doing to cover all these questions. What I want from you guys is to add questions on lighting web component so that when we go through that question, we do not miss anything. Okay. So let's see if I want to show you the error callback, what will I do? Let's remove the super keyword from the constructor. In a way, we are purposefully invoking an error.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we overload these methods? Like if I want to pass any parameter,
Sorry, can you repeat?
can we overload these callback methods?
Can we overloop?
Overload, like if I want to pass any method parameters to those methods.
You want to pass any method or parameter to that method? No, you cannot pass the parameter to these method. Inside these method, you can call other methods. Let's say if you want to call a wire or something, inside that you can do that. So now you can see the error will occur, and that is where the error callback will happen. Okay. So we have not written the code for the error callback, but that's where the error will happen. If we go to this, the constructor on child will be called, but that's where we have written wrong code. We have not written the super keyword, so that's when the error will be called back. And if we write a code for error callback, then that code will get executed here, and rendered callback will not happen on child as well as on the parent, because at this time error will happen. Okay, so that's where we got the error if we want to test the error callback. Okay. Got it, guys? Error callback.
Yes.
Yes,
Disconnect
so
callback.
in case
Yes.
if you want to show something in case error occurred, then we can use that function, right?
Yeah. Catch that error and show it logically.
And one more thing, like what you mentioned about the super here.
Mhm. Yes, that is also very important. Why to use super keyword? Then what I have. Okay. The first statement must be super with no parameters. This call establishes the correct prototype chain and value for this. So basically it is doing the prototyping or prototype chaining. It basically connects your Lightning Web Components to it in a such a way that it directs or redirects to the DOM of that page. Basically, it assigns the global properties. First statement should always be the super keyword. This will does the correct prototype chaining and assign the value for this. This basically tells that if you use this keyword, what will it refer? It refers to the DOM properties. It refers to the global scope related thing. Okay. And I am sure that you must be confused about what is prototype chaining. So this is very important for you to understand. Understanding prototype chaining is very important to understand the functionality of this keyword. There are many sites you can go through any, but try to go through this. Okay. The new ES6 class hides the inner working of prototype chaining. Understanding how prototype chaining works is crucial if you would like to develop performant code using JavaScript or other familiar prototype maybe linked this it's a gross over something. Go through this. If not, then at least there are a couple of videos on YouTube. Sorry. Go through any one video to understand what is prototype. I personally like
data science and
so you can go to Code with Harry, or you can go to anyone's, like all are good. Try to understand what it is, and it will be a whole different game after that. Okay. Now we will start with the disconnect callback tomorrow, and then we will do a couple of examples on lifecycle hook. Like, because we have just understood the theory of it, we cannot say we know it without knowing when to use which one and when not to use which one. So that will be the agenda for tomorrow, to do it practically, to see what we can do with which life cycle hook, what we cannot do with what life cycle hook, and when not to use a particular life cycle hook. Okay. And then there is a render method as well. So render method is something which we'll have to. I said that there is a render method which is not a life cycle hook, but a protected method in between connected callback and rendered callback. So that is also we will have to see. Okay.
Tomorrow Sunday we have.
I think we should take class on Sunday. Available? You guys are available?
Yes.
yes, Mohit.
Let's do this, and also let's do doubt session tonight, 9 p.m. Will that be okay? If
Today?
Yes, Mohit.
Yeah, yes, Mohit.
All right, let's do a doubt session tonight at 9 p.m. and tomorrow we'll have class on again life cycle looks only, because this is important, and what we have covered today is just to set the basics, but this requires more detailed study on when not to use which constructor or when not to use which callback method versus when to use which callback. Okay, so let's do that today, tomorrow. Okay,
So Mohit, I have one question.
go ahead.
So error callback will call when there is any error on the child component, right? Or parent?
On the see, whatever lightning web component you have written, if even if we miss that super in the parent component, that will also call the error, but then it will not even go to the child. The error will occur even before that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
error,
Thank you.
yeah, it's not related to only child. Okay.
Okay.